Alrighty, welcome to the D Unit Fantasy Premier League journey for 2024-2025 season. I'm quite a seasoned Fantasy Premier League player. I'm a seasoned AFL Fantasy Premier League player, and hopefully I'll be providing you with some valuable insight over the coming weeks, months, and years, hopefully, if this thing takes off. So this is my first ever fantasy podcast, let alone podcast at all. And behind me, if you're not watching along and you're listening to this, I've just got a couple of shirts up with the players that I love. So I've got Fellaini. I'm a Mad Man United fan as well. I've got a Ruud Van Nistelrooy shirt. I can tell you how excited I am that he is back at United. And then I've got my Boulder Soccer City, the club I play for shirt. And then I've got my last club that I used to play for back in Perth, which is my Leaving Strikers shirt. Ironically, I've won awards with those two shirts that I've just talked about there. Moving on, mad gamer. As you can tell, I've got a lot of gaming collectibles in the background. And today, hopefully, we'll be looking at all the different rules, the scoring, and what it all means moving into season 24-25. And at the very end, in the show notes, I will actually put a league that you can join if you want to verse me or my friends that like to think that they can beat me. Big shout out to D Tuck, who is a perennial loser. Unfortunately, that's just what happens when you verse the D unit. And we do take this very seriously, so let's crack on with the show. We will be first going to look at the new rules. So there's been some big changes announced for season 24 and 25. The first thing is there's 5 free transfers. So in previous years, you could hold up to 2 transfers. So you'd had 1 free transfer every week, and then you could save it up over 2 weeks and then use 2 at once, or you'd go to -4. This year they've changed it, so now you can bank up to like 5 free transfers and use them all in 1 week. So for example, if you nail your starting lineup, which is hopefully what I'm going to be doing, I won't be making any trades until the international break, which is after the first 3 rounds of fixtures this year. And essentially, that means that hopefully if I stuff up and I get my team wrong or whatever it is, I'll actually be able to go back and change what it is I want to do with my team. And hopefully that means I'm not losing points. And hopefully I can have a bit more strategy looking ahead to favourable game weeks and things like that. So that's a massive, massive change. I love that. I think it's brilliant. Being able to bank that, fantastic. Now the second new change is there's going to be a mystery chip. Now the mystery chip can't be played until after January. It's getting released and then, but everyone gets one and God knows what it does. I was trying to picture in my head what it would do, but in reality, I just can't figure it out. I'm thinking it might combine, like, might be able to swap 4 players permanently or something like half a team. I really don't know. I don't know what would be useful either way. Or maybe it's like a chip that if you end up with like 4 injuries or something, which occasionally happens and people get injured, and there's high likelihood of injuries this year, considering that we've had the Euros and the Copa America, and there's likely to be injuries. So look, at the end of the day, it's probably best to keep that in mind. But I would get, that would be nice if that mystery chip just actually took out all the injured players and got rid of them in 1 hit. It'd be nice to use it once. So the next thing they've changed is the pitch design. So it's now looking a bit like this. You'll see it when I show the next thing, but essentially it's got the new grid, which was used in FPL Challenge last year. They've moved over to the main game this year. The next thing, and this is where it gets really important, is the changes to point scoring. So the points for each goal scored by a goalkeeper is being increased this season from 6 to 10. Now, the chances of a goalkeeper scoring a goal are pretty remote. But if it does happen, they're rewarding it with an extra 4 points. So that's absolutely fantastic. There's also been changes made to the bonus point system, which is the BPS. If you hear what I'm talking about, that's the BPS is the bonus point system. And we'll get into the rules of scoring a little bit later on. So firstly, saving a penalty to be reduced from 15 to 9 bonus points, which makes goalkeepers not as helpful. And it means if they save a penalty in the blowout is like 4-1. Last year, they're probably getting some bonus points. This year, they're probably getting none. There are also new additions to the BPS, so players will be rewarded or penalised for more different actions. So goalkeepers and defenders conceding a goal will be worth -4 BPS. So that's definitely a change. A goal line clearance will be worth 3 BPS. A foul one will be worth 1 BPS. And a shot on target will be worth 2 BPS. So if you've got someone that has a lot of shots, I'm thinking Bruno Fernandes. I don't know why, but that means he's more likely to get bonus points because he does quite often take shots. Whether there's shots on target, that's another thing. But I think Nicholas Jackson last year took a lot of shots that were on target and just didn't go in. The dude did not know how to finish. But there were a couple of weeks where he could. The next changes to blank and double game weeks. So the schedule for FA Cup ties will be different this season, resulting in fewer clashes with Premier League fixtures. That is set to mean fewer and smaller blank and double game weeks, with FPL managers needing to rethink their chip strategies. And from there, what's new on FPL Challenge? Well, we're also getting new features in the FPL Challenge. I'm not going to be doing too much of that because I'm mainly focused on the main game, but I will be looking at that particular thing in future weeks to come. Now, moving on to the next thing is how do you actually score in this game? So that's what the thing looks like. We'll get to that in a second. That is essentially what your starting grid looks like before you pick all your players. I haven't actually picked my team yet, and I've only got 2 days to do it from now. So we are going to go back here. So scoring. This is how you get points in this game. If your player plays 60 minutes, which means they have to start the game, you get 1 point. That means 59 minutes, up to 60 minutes. That didn't make sense. If you're playing 60 minutes or more, you get 2 points, excluding stoppage time. All right, so stoppage time does not count towards this. For each goal scored by a goalkeeper, you get 10. For each goal scored by a defender, you get 6. For each goal scored by a midfielder, which is really relevant, you get 5. For each goal scored by a forward, it's worth 4. And for each goal assist, doesn't matter what position you are, it's 3. And for a clean sheet by a goalkeeper or a defender, it's worth 4. For a clean sheet by a midfielder, you get 1 point. For every 3 shots saved by a goalkeeper, you get 1 point, which is quite relevant for some goalkeepers. For each penalty save, you get 5. For each penalty miss, that means if your player takes a penalty and misses, you get -2. So bonus points for the best players in a match can be awarded 1, 2, or 3 votes, depending on what index they come up with the bonus point system. For every 2 goals conceded by a goalkeeper or defender, it's -1. For each yellow card, it's -1. If you are unlucky and you've got a player that gets a red card, it's -3. And if you've got a player that scores an own goal, that happened to a few of my mates last year, it is -2. Now, if, for example, a player plays 61 minutes, they have a clean sheet, and then they go off, they will get the 6 points. So they'll get the 2 points for playing over 60 minutes because they played 61. They get the 4 points for the clean sheet. And it doesn't matter if their team concedes after that, they're still going to end up with those 6 points. So that's just a really neat thing to keep in mind. Now, when you go to starting your team, you'll notice that the budget this year is £100 million, essentially. That's what the measure of the prices of the players are kept in, is pounds, not dollars, where I'm from, where I'm living currently, but pounds. So you start with £100 million, which is very important when you're trying to work out how your team's going to look. Now, before we get into who you should be picking for your team and what it should look like and all this, the best thing I can recommend is to check out the Premier League fixtures for the first 3 rounds. And I'm going to actually do the predictions for what I think will happen this weekend, and we'll see how accurate I am every week. I will predict these, and I'll go with the score as well. So my team, Man United, play Fulham. Now, I've watched all the pre-season games. We've won 1 game, and we've lost every one. Every one of the others. I'm not confident that we're going to keep a clean sheet this weekend, so I wouldn't be starting with Man United defenders, but I think we'll get the win. I can potentially see Ahmad, Garnacho and Fernandes all scoring. I reckon it'll be 3-1 against Fulham on Friday night to open the season. Then we've got Ipswich against Liverpool. I think that Liverpool, you'd think they would win comfortably. I'm thinking 3-0. Arsenal against Wolves. Again, Wolves just seem to be selling their good players and they don't seem to be buying anyone. And Arsenal didn't concede last year. So I can see Arsenal keeping a clean sheet there and probably that being 3-0 as well. Everton versus Brighton. That is a real toss-up. It could be a 0-0 draw. Wouldn't be surprised. Newcastle against Southampton. Again, you would expect Isaac to get off to a hot start here if he's fit and available. Starting at 10 o'clock, that one over here at 3 p.m. Kickoff in the UK. You would expect Newcastle to account for Southampton easily. I do expect them to concede though. I reckon that could be 4-1. Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth. That, again, another toss-up, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's a 1-1 draw. Then we go on to Sunday. Villa and Aston Villa. Sorry, my God, West Ham and Aston Villa. What am I waffling on about? It's because they're both the same coloured jersey and even their logos look kind of similar. I don't know what I'm looking at. But either way, West Ham versus Villa, you would expect that to be an entertaining game. I reckon that could be like 2-2 or 2-1 to Villa. Just depends on how well West Ham start and who they've actually got signed and whether they're fit and ready for the game. Brentford versus Crystal Palace. Interesting. I think Tony could score, but Palace have been looking pretty good in pre-season, so I think that, again, could be a draw, that game. It could be 1-1. Chelsea against Man City. Haaland's been hot in pre-season, and I would expect him to start pretty hot here. He did look pretty good in every game I watched in their pre-season. So I would imagine he'd start scoring goals for fun, and Chelsea have looked absolutely ordinary. So that could be like 3-0, 3-1, something like that. And then on Tuesday, the last game of the round, it's Leicester against Spurs. And again, Leicester look like they're at sea. They could be dock points. They could be relegation material before the season even starts, based on what the Premier League's doing with them and the FPL charges for breaking PSR rules from their last time in the Premier League. Doesn't make sense why they weren't punished last year, but they're being punished this year. No, it makes no sense. Spurs easily account for them 3-0 at the very minimum. Now, the other reason why we want to look at the other fixtures is what's happening the weeks after. So you want to see who's playing. So these first 3 rounds, as I said, Saturday the 24th and Sunday the 25th. Again, that's the second round of Premier League fixtures. And then the 31st and the 1st before the international break. Now, Man United play Liverpool in that third fixture. And Arsenal have a pretty good run. It's got to be fair. They've got Villa, I think, in week 2. They do. But Man City have got Ipswich after Chelsea this week. I can imagine them getting off to a real hot start. And then they've got West Ham. I can see Haaland popping off. And then obviously Liverpool have to come to Old Trafford. I can't see Liverpool winning at Old Trafford, but I can see them demolishing Brentford as well. So that's going to tie into how you actually work out what you're going to do. But I think United will definitely improve this year as well. So hopefully we'll see. We'll touch on that a bit later on in the podcast. Now, moving on to picking your team. So when you open up the screen, it looks like this. But if you're just listening along, you've got 4 different categories. You've got your goalkeepers, your defenders, your midfielders, and your forwards. So you need 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 forwards. And it needs to line up in a certain formation. So it can be 3-4-3. It can be 4-4-2. It can be 4-5-1. Or it could be 5-4-1. Or 4-3-3. You can't have 2 defenders, as much as you would love to do it, because last year they were all pretty average in general, but you can't actually do that. And all these players, the whole team, which consists of 15 players in total, needs to fit within the 100 million bracket. Now, I've been looking at a number of different things, but if we pull up the goalkeepers from last year, Pickford and Raya were the best. Pickford was the best by quite a distance. Everton, I do envisage, will keep a lot of clean sheets again, so I wouldn't be surprised if Pickford stays near the top. He's worth 5 mil. Some of the other picks that I would think of here that probably will go quite well, depending on how well the players defend. I actually think United will keep a lot more clean sheets this year. And Nana, I think's price is pretty good at 5 as well. I think that he could definitely improve. Raya's pretty safe bet. That Arsenal defence looks lean and mean. Edison makes a few too many mistakes, along with Alisson from Liverpool. And you really want their attacking players. You don't really want to be wasting your position on their goalkeeper. And then for the bargain basement, you want to go down probably to, I don't know, to be honest, one of the new teams that have come up, and look for whoever's starting in goal for them on the weekend, or who's scheduled to start in there, and just pick one of them. But yeah, Flecken's also a good shout as well. He could be a good goalkeeper. He's the Brentford goalkeeper as well. He's at 4.5. And Areola, I think, will be pretty good again at 4.5 as well. Now, moving on to the defenders. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. The top 3 rated defenders from last year are all Arsenal players. So that's White, Saliba, and Gabriel. But they're all really expensive this year. So last year, you could get Saliba, I feel like, and Gabriel for close to 5. They start at 6 mil this year. And last year, it was not uncommon for teams to have 3 lots of Arsenal defenders. I just can't see how you can afford to waste 18 million on 3 players in defence. I just don't think there's a benefit that, because if they concede a goal, then they're not scoring enough points to probably win, and they're not going to be scoring every week. And Saliba and Gabriel do not assist. And with the changes to bonus point systems, I just don't think it's worth spending your money on defensive players this year. I think you're better off looking for players who are going to play every week. For example, I think Diego Dalot and Lissandro Martinez for United, they're going to be defending a lot better this year. They could be worth a shout because I'm still not sure who's actually going to score the goals for United, but I think they will be much better defensively. Some of the other teams like West Ham, when they get going, Wan-Bissaka is going to be starting every game for West Ham right back. And I can imagine him dominating, and he's a really good price as well. So he's another one to keep your eye on, but you don't want to be wasting too much of your budget on the defenders. Now, moving on to the midfielders. Last year, at the start of the show, was Cole Palmer. He was an absolute steal. I think he started off at 5.5 mil. Well, this year, you're going to have to pay 10.5 mil to get him in your team from the get-go. And he hasn't played any preseason because obviously it was England, the Euros. He's only just come back. And I just can't see him being a good start. I actually think that his price will drop because lots of people will probably have him in, and he's likely to start slow because Chelsea don't look good at the moment. That's just my personal opinion, but I just don't think he's going to be starting very well to begin the season. Again, Phil Foden, the next one on. He hasn't started for Man City either. I expect him to have a slow start too. I would be steering way clear of those ones. Now, the one that does pop out to me because of his early season form is Mo Salah. Mo Salah has an unbelievable record on opening day. He very rarely ever blanks. He's a penalty taker, which is what you want because if there's going to be penalties, you want your players to be the ones taking them. That's the only chop out I'll give to Palmer because he's likely to be the Chelsea penalty taker, and they do win lots of penalties, as seen from last year. So I reckon Mo Salah, fantastic pick there, potentially opening round. The next one is Bruno Fernandes. That dude, he played the Charity Shield. He hadn't played preseason up until then, and he looked quality. He was probably our best player on Saturday night in the Community Shield. I expect him to go way above the 8.5 this year. I think he'll be dominant. Depending on how Liverpool play, and this is why I'm so skeptical on like recommending their players. Arne Slot could burn, or he could go really well. If he goes really well, Luis Diaz is going to be a steal, I reckon. He scored 2 goals on the weekend in the last friendly against Sevilla. Definite chance that he goes big. Kudos from West Ham, definitely keep an eye on him. And Eze from Crystal Palace, they've definitely got to be up there. And so is Garnacho at 6.5. He's still dirt cheap. He's had 10 goals in the league last year, and he had a bunch of assists too. There is no reason he can't get up to 20 goals and assists this year combined pretty easily, which would drastically improve his 131 points. I expect that to get to close to 180, maybe even 200 if he has a good season, hits the ground running like he did in the Community Shield. Mbembo, again, is playing pretty well for Brentford, and Kulusevski could also be a really good pick from Tottenham. Just depends on how they start. Hee-chan from Wolves is, again, pretty cheap. And then if we go to the next page, we can have a look at some of them. De Bruyne has dropped a lot in price. I don't expect him to be playing that much this year. It will be his last year at Man City, and he definitely won't be playing every game. Diogo Jota, another Liverpool player to keep an eye on. Again, I'm not sure about recommending their players, but they could start really hot with the first couple of games before they play United. There's no reason why they can't. And then you just got to look for a couple of bargains. So if we look for some of the new teams that come up and that, you just got to look at who's been playing, what their preseason forms are. I've just seen someone scoring some goals, man. Lock them in because that's the best way of making points and making money. And that's what this game is all about. If we go to the forwards as well, Halaand is worth 15 mil. Now, that's a huge amount of your budget. That is 15% of your budget to one player. But I think it's almost worth it. Like when I look around the rest, Watkins hasn't been playing much preseason. Havertz is Havertz. Solanke might take time to settle into Tottenham. The only other one that looks really good at the moment is Isak. Isak looks really good with his opening fixtures. I would highly recommend him. And Mateta has been scoring goals for France at the Olympics like they've been going out of fashion. He's definitely a lock as well. So those ones I would definitely be looking at. In terms of the other ones, João Pedro from Brighton could be a good pick. Muniz from Fulham definitely looks like a cheap option at 6 mil. You would expect him to get better. They haven't signed any forwards that I'm aware of. And Raul Jimenez is definitely slowing up. He's getting older. And Ivan Toney's at 7.5. He could also be worth a look, depending on how you want to do it. So that leads us to, do you get Salah or Haaland? Now, if we look at Haaland's early fixtures, we just click on here and it'll show us his fixtures. He's got Chelsea, which would normally be a hard matchup in the first game week. They're rated 4 on the Premier League website. And then if you look at the next two, Ipswich Town and then West Ham, you would expect him to score big. Ipswich at home, I wouldn't be surprised if he scored a hat-trick. West Ham away, we know what he did last year. There's definitely a chance he can repeat that. Now, if we go to Salah's fixtures, his are just about as good. He's got Ipswich Town first up. So, again, he could score an opening day hat-trick. There's definitely not outside of the realms of possibility. Then he's got Brentford, and then he's got Man United away. So, again, pretty good fixtures to begin the season. Man United could go either way, man. But depending on how well Ten Hag has got him sorted defensively and however the defenders fit in, that's going to be interesting. So that's all I can say about that. I am actually tending to see if I can fit them both in my team and just go really skimp on the defense and goalkeepers and just try and ride the waves of their points, because I actually think that the way the game is tiered up with the changes this season, I think that there's a strong likelihood that you don't have to worry about defenders and how many points they're going to get. I think you can make it up in your forwards. But that's my personal opinion at the moment. That's probably the way I'm leaning towards. Next up, the Arsenal defenders. Can you go on? So if we pull up the defenders now, and we'll just go to like White. I actually finished with White last year, and he probably cost me my second place last year. Highly frustrating. They start with Wolves, then they've got Villa, and then they've got Brighton. So you'd expect them to keep 2 clean sheets in the first 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't keep any. And then you're like, well, I've just wasted 12 mil. If you say you get 2 of their defenders, you've wasted 12 mil of your squad already on 2 players that are only be scoring maximum of 4 points combined. I just don't think it's worth it. But that's my personal opinion. You might squeeze one of them in and hope for the best, and then go with Raya and goalkeeper, and then you have 2. But I've seen teams and reading lots of content about just staying clear of Arsenal for the first 3 games in total, because they're all overpriced. So that's just, one of the things to consider. Next up, will United bounce back? Now, I'd like to hope so. I look at their players. Which ones am I likely to pick? So if I just go here and I'm just going to pull up, actually, I don't actually know how to pull up. Here we go, by team, Man United. So if we pull up by Man United and we just click on Diogo Dalot, who was our highest scoring defender last year, he's worth 5 mil. Lisandro Martinez is definitely going to be probably one of the picks of the season. He's only 4.5, and he's got Fulham and Brighton to start the game, and he has a chance of scoring a goal from a corner with his head. I know he's only 5'7", 5'9", I think he is, 5'11", but neither here nor there. But he's got a pretty decent run to start with. So they've got Fulham, Brighton, and then Liverpool, obviously the difficult one. You probably drop in the bench for that. And then they've got Southampton and Crystal Palace. Again, shouldn't be too hard. And then they've got Aston Villa. They don't play Arsenal until the 4th of December. So you would think Man United should have a pretty good run. If they aren't banging goals and keeping clean sheets up until the 30th of November when they play Everton at home, you'd be struggling to see United anywhere near the top 4. So I think their players are definitely... I think we could have a good season this year. I'm definitely hoping we can have a good season this year. So again, the first thing you want to do this season, 100%, plan your first 3 weeks carefully. If you don't get the first 3 weeks right, you're not going to be probably winning your leagues. Having said that, though, last year I was 100 points clear of everyone in my league about 25 rounds in, and somehow I finished second. So it's not impossible to come back, but it certainly makes it a lot easier. So having those 5 free transfers as well will make life a lot more calculated for certain managers. They might be viewing a complete change, and you'll literally be able to change half your team in 1 week for free without taking any of them -4s, which will be really big, particularly when it comes to the blank game weeks, if there are going to be a small amount of them. But that's definitely something to keep in mind. We will look at FPL Challenge next time. But for this week, that's it for me. Let's make sure that you get those teams in before Friday. Obviously, it's a Friday night kickoff. It's 3 a.m. Australian time, which is hugely annoying. But hopefully everyone's there, up for it. Hopefully United fans are up for it. Hopefully this has shed a little bit of light. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow the channel. And we'll see you next week after week 1, where you can ascertain how well I've gone with my starting team or how bad I have gone with my starting team. Keep an eye out for that, and I'll also be putting a link in the comments. So if you want to join our league and follow along and try and beat me, we will have a head-to-head league, and we'll also have one where if you finish on top, you finish on top and you win the glory. All right, thanks for tuning in. Till next time, that's the D Unit out.